Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar with Jason Lewis. Excited to kick this one off. Jason, last time you and I spoke, we went down a few rabbit holes just talking about trends in REI and some of the best practices for getting involved in new markets. And I kind of wanted to just press pause on that, or at least press replay on that conversation and open that up to our audience and going to give them the opportunity to get some of your insights here. So, um, you know, we have the agenda pinned to the chat for everyone to see. Just going to go through this one by one and really open up this conversation. I think it's going to really help everyone on this call. I know we're almost halfway through already, which is crazy, but really shape a very profitable 2024 moving forward to give you guys some great ideas for the second half of the year. All right, so Jason, you want to do a little introduction for? I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but for the few that don't, and then yeah, we'll jump into it.
Sure. I'm Jason Lewis. I've been in the space for 11 years. I own a couple companies. So my first 5 years were spent working for somebody else. I started as the guy getting lunch. Basically, I mean, you could almost call me like a assistant. Was probably my first title in this space, and then rose up to COO, running that company. Was there for 5 years, then left, started my own thing about 6 years ago. That company has grown since. Last year we did 4 million in assignments plus flip profit. And then this year on pace to do the same. 5 years ago started the Investor Machine, which is basically a high level lists, done for you, direct mail and marketing in general company for real estate investors nationwide. I've been a launch control customer myself for, I think, Aaron, the owner of Launch, and I have been friends since before Launch Control even started. And I used the first version of Launch that was scrapped entirely and then started over entirely for the Launch that's here today. So like I've been a Launch Control user before Launch was what Launch is today. Great, great platform.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. You have been around since the very beginning, which I love. All right, so let's jump into it. One of the things that you and I talked about right off the start was just kind of I always ask this question when I want to get a pulse check on the industry. It's just what are the trends? What is anything new happening in the REI space this year? I know that, with, rising interest rates and what just came down with for real estate agents, I know that there's a lot of kind of pivot questions in people's minds. So I'd love to go over some of that. And I do think that you mentioned as well, just um, appointment level competition and how that is impacting people. So yeah, I'm going to let you take this one, but would love to dive into some of those topics.
Yeah, awesome. So the thing that's important for all of us to remember that I've had to learn with time and beating up and doing this for a decent amount of time is, we're all ships on a sea, kind of a little bit. And a rising tide brings all boats up, and a lowering tide brings all boats down. And I've seen this affect all of us. I'm in quite a few different masterminds. I'm in Investor Fuel, I'm in Collective Genius and CG Select. And it's funny, we'll have time periods where, talking about like the market in general, it's 2021 and we're all high-fiving and we're talking about how great we are and we're all making so much money and we're the best business owners ever. And I stood up and, on stage at one point and said, how many of you just had the best quarter or the best year you've ever had? 95% of the hands went up in the room. And it's like, guys, it's not us. Uh, it's just a really good market making things everywhere. Be careful. Make sure you have your ducks in a row. Make sure you're making the proper refinements to your business, because at some point the tide's going to come out and we're going to see really quickly who's wearing a swimsuit and who's not, to use Warren Buffett's words. So it's important to understand what's going on in the market nationally, as well as it's really important to understand what's going on in your market locally. I've got a slide somewhere that showed when interest rates went up a lot really fast in 2022. Your experience mattered a ton based off of where you lived in America. And I think this chart posted like halfway through 2023, so it was looking back over the last year. It showed how much home prices went up or down. There were some markets that like top to bottom in a short period of time, you drop like 15 or more percent in a short period of time. When you do that, that feels like death, right? Like when that happens, and that was what we got in Salt Lake. That's what my friends in Boise got. That's what an element of what people in Phoenix got. A lot of these like West Coast, Vegas, major markets that went up really quickly. Um, Affordability hit, and then it was just we all got crushed. And I remember going to one of the masterminds and having a bunch of friends from the Midwest there, and them being like, "It's all good. Like we're just kind of cruising along, no big deal." And thinking like, "Dude, what is wrong with me?" That was when I kind of learned the lesson of you need to understand what's happening nationally as well as locally. And one of the cool parts of being in most markets is there are a few leading markets that will tell you what's coming. You can kind of see the future a little bit. If you look in San Diego, Launch Control HQ, Phoenix, these are leading markets. Things typically go from those markets to now we start hitting the coastlines. Now we start to hit Tampa and Charlotte and New England and places like that. And then we kind of move to the middle in the Midwest. It's good to have a pulse to figure out what's happening because you can kind of tell the future a little bit based off of that. So
And
with that, there's all sorts of things happening right now. That's kind of like the big picture. Is that where you want me to go next? Is okay, that's the big picture now. Let's talk about what's happening now.
yeah, but in terms of before we do that, like in terms of just staying on you mentioned a few different markets there, right? Like what happened in Salt Lake, what happened in Boise, the Midwest being a fairly safe space, kind of maybe a midline in Phoenix. For people that are just getting started and are hyper focused on their own market, how do you any suggestions on how to kind of stay in the loop, stay educated? So that they do have an idea of how the macro effect of the nationwide market may be impacting their local market.
Yep. So there's a few people that I like to follow. You got John Burns Real Estate Consulting. They put out a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. They're good, very sharp. Realtor.com puts out a lot of stuff. Zillow puts out a lot of stuff. I think Redfin puts out a lot of stuff. I just generally read their reports. Realtors are watching this stuff really close. Even if you go talk to a really smart realtor and say, "Hey, what are the trends? What are we seeing? What's happening in real estate right now?" They can give you a lot of the answers. And honestly, one of my favorite ways to get it is masterminds too. You go to the groups and they're going to have people in there talking about this, and you kind of just get a feel of what everyone's seeing nationally. And then people like you guys and us have advantages too because we have clients all over the nation, so we can see what's happening all over a little more so than just our unique standpoint
Yeah, I'm
of
glad you
like
said that. So
one
that
operator, one market.
Yeah, so I'll give my CS team a quick plug here. They do work with investors at every level and nationwide. So we have a lot of data coming in through the platform on just performance metrics across the country. So if you guys are interested in what's going on a national level or what might be going on in a competitive market, do ask your CS lead, and if they don't have that information top of mind, they'll be able to get it for you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so in terms of what's happening recently and how does that affect things? Biggest kind of national things that I see happening. One, you got for wholesaling specifically, you got regulation kind of coming down the pipeline a little bit. My friend Jerry Norton does a great job of keeping track of that and what's happening in all different states. I think if you just Google Jerry Norton regulation, you can see, hey, this is what's happening in all of these states. Know what's kind of going on in your state. Some states are saying, hey, you need to be licensed to do this. Every different place has its own, but make sure you're playing by the rules of your state. Um, Number two, obviously that NWAR thing plays an impact. We don't know yet how big of an impact that's going to play. Um, Everybody has their own gut, own opinion. The scary part about saying your gut and opinion on podcasts is that they stay around for forever and you can be absolutely wrong. There's things that age well and things that don't age well. I have my opinions on how that shakes out, but it's entirely uh, opinion. I'm happy to share my opinion if you want, but realize that you're just like I typically prefer to share like facts and data, and this is what to go do to be successful rather than try to fortune tell. But if you want me to fortune tell, I will.
No, you don't. Well, I mean, if anybody has any questions or anybody themselves wants to fortune tell in this moment, like drop a line in the Q&A or drop a line in the chat, and we'll address it there. The one thing I am curious about, that I would like you to fortune tell a little bit on, because I think it's going to impact the industry across
Interest
nationwide, which in terms of just the relationship with between wholesalers and real estate agents, and how those dynamics might shift in terms of a collaborative relationship, because there are, for some, they have great collaborative relationships, and for others it's kind of not quite sure how to get their feet wet in that arena. So how do you think is it gonna make it more collaborative, more competitive? What's your instinct on that?
So the NWAR change, I I think there is I think there was opportunity. There's amazing opportunity in working and networking with agents before the NWAR change, and there's amazing networking and opportunity after the NWAR change. It'll be interesting to see how um, the lack of requirement to have a listing agent pay a buyer's agent winds up playing with that. I believe that there's a chance that, people will be more interested in off market things, which could by nature drive more to us as investors. So I flip as well as wholesale. Flippers make a lot more sense in the investor space, or I mean in the agent space. If your primary mode is you buy, fix up, sell houses, that's easy. It makes sense. Like, okay, this person needs someone that's going to fix up the house. I'm going to sell it to this person. They're going to pay the price. It's going to close, and it operates and works really, really well in the real estate agent space and world. Like there's different worlds out there. You have the auction world that plays by its own set of rules, which is show up, $20,000 non-refundable deposit. You're going to have to buy that house the next day. You're going to have to buy it sight unseen. These are the rules of auctions, and people that are okay with playing by those rules play by those rules. Then you have the rules of the MLS. Has to be listed. You got a bunch of showings, offers, typically due diligence, multiple days of walkthroughs, uh, financing and appraisal, negotiating back and forth, and then eventual closing when that comes up. So this is kind of like the two extremes of convenience versus price. The auction being low, high convenience because it's closing in a day, can be lower price, and then the MLS side being the opposite. So in this world, the agent world over here, if you're a flipper and you just want to go play in that space, you certainly can. Talk to as many agents as you can. Let them know, hey, I buy houses. I'm cash. This is everything I'm done. You can have multiple of them represent you. Obviously, you don't want to sign exclusive buyer broker agreements with any of them. Otherwise, only one person can represent you. Say, hey, you bring me a deal. I'm great to have you as my agent. If you have a deal that you bring my way, I'm happy to have you represent both sides. The majority of properties move through the MLS. So if you're not doing anything with the MLS, you're missing out. In the middle on the wholesale side, the biggest thing that you have to do if you want to bring agents into your world is you have to educate them. They don't understand wholesale. It's weird. It's different. It doesn't make sense. Is it shady? Is it not? I think I'm just going to let them stay over here and I'm going to focus in my world. So the best way to work with agents as a wholesaler is just a lot of education. Hey, there's a place for this. Sellers genuinely, like, there are sellers that absolutely understand all three options and they consistently choose the wholesale route. I'm one of them. I'm a realtor. I have been for years and years. I know how to list houses on the MLS. I'm constantly buying fixer uppers. And even when I already own it, I will choose to sell it through the wholesale route because it's just the right amount of convenience compared to price, getting money back quickly. I like the 5,000 non-refundable immediately. And the 2-week close, it works out perfect of my personal preference of balance between convenience and price in between. That was kind of a little bit in a few places, but that kind of line up with what you're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to say, like, I like that you brought up the fact that they often need to be educated around this, right? And I think it's something that we tend to forget because we're also in it every day. That sometimes people that are even in parallel sides of real estate don't completely understand the wholesale side of things. So you can use launch control a lot. This is kind of an underutilized element of launch control is you can use launch control to curate those relationships. So you can message realtors in your area and get them onto a text thread. And then from there, you can find out exactly what they're looking for, what kind of properties they're looking to add to their portfolio, anything that's an edge case for you that matches what they're looking for in their portfolio. That's an easy turnaround for you to get a little bit of extra, a bit of their commission, uh, an assignment fee or whatever you call it. I forget the name for it, but you're able to create those curated relationships so that it just becomes a simple matching game of any edge case property you have matching to exactly what they're looking for. And, a lot of the education you're going to be doing, hopefully you're going to have a phone relationship with them where you let them know a little bit about your business and what specifically you're looking to achieve. But you can also use the drip function for that as well, right? Where you can put them on an educational drip that lets them know like examples of what kind of properties you work with, examples of deals that you've had with other realtors in the space so that they know kind of how that process works. And you can create this text-based educational drip that also furthers those relationships. So what we try to teach people a lot coming in is there are actually three distinct profit streams from launch control. There's the prospecting side of it, which everybody utilizes. There is CRM retargeting or other retargeting from other marketing channels, which Jason and I are going to talk about that in a bit. And then there's the connecting with buyers and realtor side of things that can create profit from the platform. And that one in particular, I think is just a really easy win that not enough people are taking advantage of. So I'd like to see more and more people start to do that.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was going to add from what you're saying is realtors, we don't want to just think of agents as people that we can get deals from. A lot of my best deals that I've been able to assign to someone, a realtor, brought that buyer. And they got paid, the buyer got paid, and it worked out to be the best win for all parties.
Yeah, absolutely. Question for you. Speaking of things that are kind of tough to navigate or maybe a little bit edge case, I think you mentioned to me, and I don't know if this is still up to date, but you said that people were seeing, at least in some of the markets you're in, a lot more appointment level competition than
Mm-hmm.
they have in the past. Do you want to address that and maybe some ways that people can navigate that if they're seeing the same? And
Yep.
also to anybody, everybody listening in, if you are seeing some appointment level competition, let us know and let us know maybe any questions you have or any hacks or techniques that you want to share for others.
Yeah. Um, okay. So the competition I'm seeing in my market and I'm hearing from a lot of other people is as high as it's been. So how I define competition is a couple things. One, what is the average cost per buy in a market? And two, when you show up an appointment, how many people are you seeing there? Um, so first, the my thought on the reason for the competition. And this kind of comes back to our previous conversation. As interest rates have gone up, the total number of sellers choosing to sell have gone down. You look at national trends, it's like, hey, why would I want to sell my 3% interest rate to turn around and buy at a 7.5% interest rate? So there's just, we make money off of sellers choosing to sell. There's a smaller pie of sellers that are choosing to sell. The market has still been overall favorable. We still have people making money. Um, and so you continue to have a continuation of competition coming into the space, all trying to get pieces of a smaller and smaller and smaller pie. It'll be interesting to see if a decent number of agents wind up coming over to this side and trying to do more assignments or flips as well because of the challenges over in the realtor space. But what it's led to is I would think 9 out of 10 of our appointments we're competing in Utah. It's us versus somebody else versus somebody else. Sometimes 12 people there. Um, that's going to vary wildly based off the market you're in. If you're in more rural markets, you're going to see that less. If you're in, more competitive markets like Phoenix, Tampa, you're going to see that on almost every appointment. So, it's a couple. So what are the tactics? Number one, urgency is king. These are sellers that the thing they're trying to buy is convenience and urgency. So you got to get out there quickly. You got to make sure you answer the phone immediately. Oh, one thing I will say across marketing channels, I have found that the most competitive marketing channels, the ones that are very, very most likely to have a stack of people there, are going to be your digital marketing channels, your pay per lead, your pay per click, because your competition's this far away on a computer screen. Your least competitive are going to be your networking, aka somebody brings you a deal, they likely just brought it to you. Next least competitive is going to be your prospecting outbound methods, texting, launch control, cold calling, etc. Next least competitive is going to be mail and TV, and then most competitive is going to be digital. Is kind of what I have found to be the spectrum of competitive versus not competitive in our space. So you want to be the first, and then ideally, because you're the first, you want to be the last to have a say in there. You go talk to them first. Oftentimes when you get there first, if they feel good enough, and if they're like, hey, this is my person, I feel good, I'm getting the number that I want, you will have sellers that will say, hey, honestly, I feel good about this. This is a win-win. I really don't want to have to do the whole rigmarole. I'm good to take this offer now. If they do want to meet with everybody, just say, hey, since I was here first, since I talked to you first, would you be willing to give me the last say? They say sure, then you come back around in the end. Ideally, you find out where they are. And if it's a number you can match, that's great. If it's not, then it's not. One more hack. I'll use the Hormozy value equation. So, what people want, what someone's willing to pay is, you got what people want times by likelihood that they're going to get it, divided by the amount of effort they think it's going to take, and how long it's going to think it's going to take. So in your offer, be thinking about, how can I do this quicker? How can I do this more guaranteed? And how can I do this with less work for them? So price is a very important variable, but what else can you throw in? Can you find ways to make it more convenient? Someone else may be paying more, but will you hire people to trash out the house? Will you close in 2 days? What other things can you go and adjust on that value equation to make your offer more appealing? And then the last one I'll say with that is oftentimes these decisions are made in emotion. So be careful not to live entirely in your logic brain. If you can connect emotionally with someone, oftentimes they will do business with you just because they like you, they want to do business with you. These are ways to overcome just winning a bidding war every time. Because if it's you against OfferPad, Open Door, or some of these other, or a hedge fund or whatever, you aren't necessarily going to come in with the highest offer. So you better make sure you figure out how to provide some pretty significant value otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I want to kind of tie this together a little bit. 'Cause you said to make kind of an emotional impact on the seller, right? And 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 our or the earlier part of our chat talking about real estate agents, you said you often need to educate them around wholesaling and what wholesaling is, right? To create that trust bond, right? And the same thing is true with homeowners. The vast majority of homeowners don't know what off market is or what the opportunities are. I think I think it's a pretty clear reason why that for that scope that you gave of where networking and then your prospecting through launch or other prospecting avenues, and then up to digital, and digital being the highest level of competition, is because a digital, by the time they're clicking on an ad on their computer that says it's offering most likely a cash offer for their home, they've already either self-educated about off-market opportunities or been educated about off-market opportunities, and they're now at the decision-making stage, right? So somebody, and in most cases, unless they did the self-education route, somebody has probably already started to build loyalty, has already started to establish a relationship with that homeowner, and that puts you in a little bit of a hole to create that emotional connection because somebody got in a little early with leading indicators. So it's the question, I think, is how to get the homeowner's attention before they're ready to respond to that flashy image that says cash offer when they're still in a research and evaluation stage and don't really know what wholesaling is or what off-market solutions are. And if you can find ways to educate through text, to educate through your own website, to educate through social, whatever channels you choose to use,
Yep.
to get in and
Videos,
create,
mail.
yeah,
Yep.
right. And if you can create an education path and an emotional connection path with people, it's in standard advertising since forever, right? There are emotional appeals and factual appeals. And if you can combine a little bit of both of those before they ever get to that I have to go this route stage, you're going to win a lot more deals.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Okay, so with this in mind, right, in certain markets, we have a lot of competition, how to navigate past that competition. When things get really heated within markets, get a lot of competition, people start thinking of expansion or trying nearby markets to open up their opportunities. And often what we see people do, you and I talked about this, is they'll take whatever was working in market A and just template that and put it into market B because they've got a winning strategy in market A, but it doesn't always translate. So I wanted to get kind of your insights on that about not really relying on blanket strategies and kind of how to pivot instead.
Yeah, that's a great one. So I have talked to, being in masterminds that I'm in and everything else, I know a lot of people that it's almost like the entrepreneur brain is like, okay, I've done this in my market. I can do this anywhere now. Like it, you can almost take to the bank every investor at some point in their journey at least considers now it's time to do this in and across multiple markets. I know very few that have done it successfully, and even fewer that have said it would have been better for me to expand to another market, even though I did that, than just stay and focus on my current market. There's a few things that contribute to that. If there is one lesson that I have learned in the last year, and I would say one of my biggest level ups, I've understood this conceptually, but the depth at which I understand this now is one of the biggest lessons that Investor Machine has taught me this year. We have clients all over, just like you guys do, the nation. And we recently got really good at A, tracking exactly the results of our clients, and B, tracking who exactly sold to investors in each of the markets that we were in. And it is wild to see, even just from the marketing standpoint, how different every market is. Get is this a Do you guys have share screen capability? I just presented on this 2 days ago, and I have a perfect example for this. If you have a share screen, if not, I'll just explain
I
it.
I I think so. I think you should be able to do that. Go ahead and give it a shot.
There, okay. So, um, and actually, I'll do slideshow from current slide. Okay. So one of the main things, so there's a lot of really cool things we do at Investor Machine. One of them is we focus in very heavily on motivations. So we have data miners go direct to the county and get the hardest to get motivations, as well as we pull every different motivation list that we can find online, and we stack all of these in addition to stacking them against how ideal the property is. So for a long time, we had kind of a broad formula based off of Utah that we took and applied to our marketing. We would say an absentee is worth 1 point, a code violation is worth 3, an eviction is worth 4, or whatever, based off of this. Because eviction, that's a really motivated list, etc. So, we take a look at this and we say, okay, we think, probates maybe a 4, seniors maybe a 1. We just created a formula, we applied it across everywhere. So recently, we got really good at figuring out, okay, who exactly sold to investors and what did they look like? So on here, this is a random Midwest county. You look and see So we take a look and see, okay, here's the average number of people that sold to investors. How many percent above average was each of these motivations? So in this random Midwest county, you can see, interestingly, there's not a lot of them, but a low credit list was 36 times more likely to sell to investors than just being an average person. If they had Liz Pendens, they were 3x. Absentee was awesome in here. 2x likely if they were out of state, and 4 times as likely as normal if they were an in state absentee. And then vacant did really well. On the flip side, tax delinquent list didn't even improve your chances of selling to an investor at all. And if there was a random government lien, hey, dude, the government's leaning these guys' house. They want to get rid of it. This house sucks. Don't do it. In this case, wrong. They are a third as likely to sell to an investor as if you just literally mailed or texted everyone. Divorce, about as likely, if etc. So now we say, okay, we get it. We know how to mail. We've mastered the Midwest. Let's go mail the same motivations priority in Florida. So we take that and we look at it in Florida. Now all of a sudden, Florida is all about death, right? Like Florida is where people go to die. The Midwest is all about absentees. Florida is all about old people. It tracks, it makes sense, kind of, but you can see here probates, which weren't in the top 5 in the Midwest, are a number 1 in this Florida county. Deceased is a 10x. If they've got a felony, it's a small list, but a really good list. And that low credit list that was our top performer in the Midwest is one of our bottom performers in this Florida market. So here, you're now less likely than average to sell. And so if you've got a formula that's working, if there's anything I've learned in Investor Machine, is that we have to create our own formula for every client in every market. And we're not just doing this for motivations. We're doing this for what home size sells, what age of seller sells to an investor, what zip codes sell, what LTV, what lot size, what value, all of these things we're going and looking at and building the list to market to around that. So that's problem number 1 for blanket strategy. Problem number 2 for blanket strategy is every state, every market has different ways that they operate. One's an attorney state, one's a title state. It's really hard to value properties in new areas. There's parts in the city closest to me where there's a single street where on this side of the street, property values are worth 50 grand more than on this side of the street. You kind of have to learn a market a little bit. Your cancellation rate runs up really high. It can be hard to disposition. It can be hard to find contractors. It's a nightmare to try to figure out a national model for most people. I know a few people that have done it well. It's definitely not how I would do it.
Yeah, and I think that data you showed, I think, really illustrates the importance of knowing the market or working with others that do. And launch control can be a really good way to litmus test a new market before you really pour a lot of time, effort, and money into it. And what most people do when they go into a new market, and it's understandable, but they, instead of using that drilled down level of data that you showed, they use a wide scope of data and they just see what comes back in. And if it shows enough interest, then that is an indicator that it's a good market for them to go into. The negative for this is that that initial push of interest that they might have gotten back, even if it was through text, sometimes they have trouble turning properties over to buyers in the end because they didn't really have a buyer profile on that side. Or like you said, the price variation is creating margins that just really aren't working. They might have gotten interest, but the margins weren't lining up. And so a lot of effort went into it on the front end, but the full journey of deal flow didn't line up the way that they wanted within that market. So one of the things that we suggest for people to try with texting is to line up purpose on both ends of the funnel. So on the first end of the funnel, that's exactly what you just showed, right? Of like knowing the profile of the motivation factors in a specific market allows you to speak specifically to those motivations when you reach out. Right, the way that you speak to someone who's 65 or older living in Florida is not the same as the way that you're going to speak to somebody who's living in Florida but has 4 properties in the Midwest somewhere. right? Like those are different conversations. So knowing those conversations is really helpful. But one of the front loading things that we suggest for people to do with text is the first text that you send out in a new market, send it to contractors and fix and flippers, whoever your buyers are going to be, and find out what they're buying. Get them onto a curated list. Find out what they're buying, kind of what the price points are. Hopefully get on a phone call with them and get some market parameters from the people that you're going to end up selling to before you ever find out who's selling. Right. So then when you've got your curated list of buyers on the back end ready to go, and you've got that data profile on the front end, so you can hone your messages based on where you're most likely to get a bite in that market, then you can create a system for very quick turnover where you're initiating the right conversations and you're turning those properties over to the right buyers who have raised their hand and said that they're ready to buy. That allows you to stand up a new market with a lot less factor of hit or miss, right?
100%. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So another thing we look at, so this is talking about the data. So, we provide the data for our clients, then we take it a step further. We will actually do the direct mail fulfillment. And we get results back across all the creatives of which ones work best. And right now, all of our creatives that are working the best have what we call our specializing in. So because we know what motivations they have from the list that you saw before, we will adjust the creative to speak to the specific motivations that the seller has. If they're absentee, we'll adjust it a little bit to speak to their problems. If they've got a felony, if they're a probate, etc., we adjust it just a little bit. And in terms of positive response rates that we see, appointments booked, etc., those are the creatives that produce those results the highest, are the ones that aren't just sending a hey, I buy houses, fast closing, quick cash, as is, no agents wording, but they actually have a hey, I specialize in helping people through probate. But guess what? The only people that you specialize in helping go through probate are the ones that are going through probate. You specialize in difficult tenants to the people that are absentee that have difficult tenants or just evicted somebody. You specialize in helping with government liens for people that have government liens, etc.
Glad you mentioned that. Speaking of blanket strategies, right, the most overused strategy in REI is cash offer for your house.
Mm-hmm.
It is the default to everything, right? But in for certain groups of people, it falls into a bucket of essentially being shame marketing, right? Like, yeah, that's me. I have to do that. Right. Whereas a lot of what you're talking about is like we specialize in helping people through probate solutions. That's help marketing, not shame marketing. And that help marketing, especially when it's segmented to specific niche levels, like it's one of the standard tenets of marketing is just be really great in a niche. That if you want to get a bunch of business, be really great in a niche. Don't do everything. It's like going to a restaurant and you go to the restaurant and it's got 40 pages of food. You're like, I don't trust any of this, right? You're going to trust somebody who's a specialist and does one or two things really, really well. So if you can be a specialist in probate, you can be a specialist in navigating pre-foreclosure, you can be a specialist in working with out-of-state landlords and helping them ease the process for them and making it very hands-off for them. But if you can focus it on help instead of, hey, I know you're down in a hole, like, I can help, like that blanket strategy of cash offer has been stamped out in every market and for every situation. And it really doesn't, to be honest, it really doesn't fit until people hit that point, like you said, of like they've clicked on that PPC ad because they know they need to make that choice, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to the check cashing place, they're taking the cash offer, they know where they're at, right? Whereas there's this whole other larger group that you can catch and you can educate earlier and you can niche market to, it will always be more effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um, it's interesting. It's a tough, and I will say it's a tough balance in this space. Like you want to be helpful, but you have to be careful not to make your tone too soft and indirect. And I can help, at least for like postcard type marketing, because I've gone there and your response goes to zero. As much as I hate it, the direct ask for, they call it like the ask for the close marketing, right? Like in 99% of other industries, it's all about funnels. You get people in at the top of the funnel, you continue to follow up with them, you work your way down. No one has ever really, really perfected that in our industry. And for whatever reason, our seller still does respond well to the direct request for business type of model. But if you can soften it with a specialization, etc., it goes better than the alternative.
Well, and everything's a conversation. So in those situations, even if you're taking a direct approach and that direct approach gets them onto a phone call, when you go into discovery, you're going to walk them through different options. You're going to become that specialist, right? And you're going to give them that guidance so that it does build trust, and they do decide to give you their business rather than give me their business or someone else their business, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that logic can be applied at earlier stages. Like you want to do it on a phone call, obviously, but you can apply that same logic to text, right? So when you send out your messages, it tracks with text marketing as well. You tend to get a better initial hit by being a bit more direct, but it's the people that then know to take a bit of a step back and become a consultant once they're into the inbox that see the most level of success. Is we want to take them down a path that activates a discovery call, right? So in text, if you can take a step back and you can give them that level of kind of guidance, like here are the ways that I can help. What are you most interested? What information do you need most upfront now? And you can start that guidance process in the beginning. They're going to trust you enough to get on a call. If you can get on a call, then you can go through the whole discovery process. But that same philosophy is true. Like, well, it may be better to be a bit more direct up front. You have to be a consultant, you have to be a specialist in order for them to really engage with you at the level you want.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so one of the other things, and I do want to talk about kind of prioritizing net revenue over deal count, but let's save that one for the end. The one thing I want to make sure we also have enough time to talk about is we phrase it as harnessing the power of collaboration. And there's a couple ways that I want to address this. One is multi-channel marketing collaboration, and we've already talked about some of this, but collaboration in terms of the right networks, the right contacts, and the right resources.
Okay. So I'll talk to the marketing aspect first. You know,
Hmm.
I, for so the I'm going to give a disclaimer first. Sometimes people listen to what I'm about to say and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I could never start marketing because I'm not doing it at this level. I'm not doing the ideal." I'm going to go present on the ideal. Far from the ideal still works. Very few people I know are doing the ideal, but it's still good to understand what the ideal is because we're going to go work towards the ideal. So the ideal is all of your marketing channels are ultimately working together. So you've got a similar brand and theme across your postcards, your TV ads, your website, etc. What one thing that I talk about all the time is, okay, someone sees your name on a letter. Uh, Great. This is 2024. What's the first thing most people are going to do? They're going to Google you. And what are they going to find? If you have no web presence, your likelihood of that lead converting is significantly less than if they look and they see, oh, 95-star Google reviews. If we want, I'll this could go well or not go well. I'll give myself a live audit. How's that?
Yeah. You know,
We'll we'll
ev-
keep it
every
interesting. So
every time
I
I Google you, I end up with some actor from Sex and the City. But yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
that's there too. So we say, so my postcard will say Jason from Fast Home Offer Utah. The problem with Fast Home Offer Utah is that it's a keyword for everybody. It's not just Googling my brand specifically, but we can look at it and say, okay, we're going to look up fast. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen yet. So we're going to put Jason Fast Home Offer Utah. And we get in here and I pass on this one, luckily. Uh, so you see Jason from Fast Home Offer Utah. And you see if I've got a postcard here. There we go. So here's a postcard that I sent recently. That exact same picture that you see here. You see another picture of me right here. You see 90 Google reviews on a 4.9 star. You see I come up number one on SEO. I'm right here on pay per click. Like my likelihood of keeping that lead that I generated from mail or word of mouth or anything else is fairly high. Now I'm gonna bet I don't do as good no matter what I search. So let's see if I just say like Jason Lewis, real estate Utah. So now I'm not so good over here. I come in third. You get me on LinkedIn. You get my realtor. This is exciting because that's my cell phone number. That's exactly what I want. Uh, is for any seller to get my cell phone number so that I can take the lead directly. So, you know, so have each of your channels talk, right? And this is something we help with an Investor Machine too, is not just doing the mail. Our goal is to get you a good ROI on your marketing. So we can actually run through and do an audit for you. And we've got people on our team that can help with all things digital to say, hey, this is how you can have all of your marketing channels talk. On that same note, if someone goes to your website, are you retargeting them through Facebook? Are they continuing to see you over and over again? Um, are you, you know, do do they wind up in your CRM? Do you have a drip campaign? Are you sending follow-ups through launch to the people that have interacted with you at any point along the way? And then are you bringing it all together with a TV campaign or billboards, which is going to hammer in your brand, which is a similar look and feel of brand across everywhere? That's how you really play with the big boys and girls. It's not sending out random, hey, I want to buy your house messages in any format. The way you really do it is all of your marketing channels collaborate together beautifully.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I want to bring up as well, because this is often a question that comes up, is the cost factor in all of this. And everything that you just mentioned can be done at an almost free level, right? So you need to be searchable. You need to be verifiable, right? So you need to have a website. And if you're signing up with Launch Control, we actually give people websites as part of compliant websites as part of the sign up process, which are usable, and that website is a place for you to capture inbound leads. But even if you're focused on setting up your own website with your own branding, which obviously I think everyone should have, that website is an extension of you and the services that you offer. But it, like with any company in the world, it is an inbound lead source. So when people are interested and they give you their phone number on the website, none of the breaks that get put into place by the CTIA, the carriers for prospecting, are put in place for those numbers. Those are numbers that you have full access to because the person opted into communication with your company. So it gives you an inbound motivated lead flow, and it's an underutilized thing. But it's the cost structure for setting up a website is very low. It's not zero, but it's very low. The cost structure for setting up social media is free. And if that social media mirrors your website and just extends on that and creates an additional insight into who you are and educating about what you do and giving some insights to homeowners, to gear, because a lot, and this is a bit of a tangent, but what a lot of investors do is they gear their social to other investors. Right. So when
Yes.
people go to search them, they find somebody that said, "Oh, I just got a great deal from this homeowner, got 10 grand over what I wanted to get." That's not the user experience that the homeowner is looking for. Right. So if your social and your website match what you can offer to a homeowner, then it's answering those questions. And organic SEO is also free. You don't have to pay for keywords. You can, if you're putting the right keywords into your website, if you're using the right keywords in like a blog entry that's on your website, you're going to become searchable if you're doing video content on YouTube, which is also free, and you're putting the right keywords into that. Again, you're going to become easily validated by the homeowner by doing a simple search, and all of those things are free. Right. You don't, you, or very, very low barrier of entry. So you don't have to be spending, 50 grand a month on TV ads and mailers and everything else. Like you can do this in a very low cost method. And then so when you do start to use launch and you're sending out messages and they're like, well, who is this person? You're one search validated and the likelihood of them answering and interacting with you goes up significantly.
Yeah, yep, for sure. Um, and the other thing I will say, kind of the next step of that is you can do it fairly inexpensively in a small area. There's a realtor in the town. So, the greater Salt Lake area is a 2 million-ish population. All the way at the north bench of that is a little town called like Pleasant View, North Ogden, Plain City, Harrisville, population 50,000, let's say. This realtor dominated that little area, and she sponsored everything, was on every billboard, and every single person in this little niche of the bigger area knew her name. You go down to Provo, nobody knows this lady's name. She doesn't do any business there, but in a 10-mile drive, every single person knows this person's info. Start there. If you want to grow a little more, grow a little more. You can take your niche area. If you live in a small, more rural market, this is much easier to pull off than if you live in Dallas. But even if you live in Dallas, go dominate Plano, go dominate Benbrook or something. This is your little niche market where you're known best. And then you can expand it out from there for a way less budget than trying to have. If you want everyone to know your name in Dallas, you better have Open Doors budget, basically, because even most people in Dallas don't know Open Doors name.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to that data that you showed in terms of motivation factors and how to kind of speak to individuals, right? So one of the things I think is really important about the power of collaboration is not isolating those conversations to a single channel, right? So if you're having a conversation and you're speaking directly to absentee or out-of-state landlords in the Midwest, it's never an issue of just did text produce, did direct mail produce, did a TV produce. The question is, were you able to make an impact with that seller group in that market? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that matters. And so looking for ways to combine your efforts for maximum efficiency is always worth having the map in place, right? So if you start with that data of I have a high motivation factor for absentee or out-of-state landlords in central Kansas, right? And then within central Kansas, you already know on the back end who your buyers are, right? And you know what they're buying, as we discussed. So in the middle, you're going to try a couple of things. You're going to try texting them, and you're going to get a 20% response rate overall, maybe 22% response rate. So that 78% that were non-responders you weren't able to activate, you're going to try them on another channel. So let's say that you're sending all of them direct mail pieces, and a handful of them reply. And then you still have the ability to go back and message them in launch or to restart a conversation in launch because you've already got the conversation going. So you can open up a text thread. So it's the ability to work the two together is really important, or vice versa, right? If they if you started a conversation on with a mailer or PPC, you got them into your CRM, the conversation stalled out, you can reignite those conversations via text and get them back into the conversation and back going. So just never let any one of your lead sources drop data into a bucket of where you don't have a yes or no answer. If it's in any stage of maybe, use one of your other marketing channels to re-engage and reinfuse that conversation until you have a clear yes, I want to sell, or no, I do not want to sell from that homeowner.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, like, as an intro message, every different seller has their way of working, right? Like as much as I personally love mail, I can't think of a time in my life where where a postcard or a letter advertisement that I got in the mail ever led to me doing business with someone else, right? Like I've never signed up for a credit card that I got through the mail. I've never, any of that stuff. Like it's just not my language. Uh Somebody else, maybe 65, been getting mail since they were young. Yeah, great. Uh mail works great for them. I am I'm an SEO person myself. First, I'm going to try to have a solution through networking and relationships. Second, I'm going to go SEO. I typically don't use pay-per-click ads myself because I know that they just paid for that and I trust Google's algorithm to give me the best answer. But I will say I get way more leads from my own PPC than I do from SEO. Because more people choose to click the top one that Google picked. So this is another advantage to a multifaceted, multi-strategy. Same thing could be said of text. People are like, oh, you actually meant this was for me? Okay, I'm going to respond to this. If it was just there, I thought it was for everybody but me. Every seller has their primary channel that they would want to speak in. And so you want to make sure you're speaking as many languages possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're getting short on time, so I did want to end with the net revenue over deal count. I know that we are certainly
I could say this one
certainly
quick.
guilty of falling into that deal
Yep.
count kind of counting. So yeah, just in general, like net revenue over deal count and focus on profitability, which we already covered this a little bit in terms of, real estate agents can be a great source for profitability as well, right? So just kind of bringing that all together and a profitability focus, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. So I've been a believer since the very early days. I don't do business to do deals. I do business. I do business to make money. Very oftentimes you'll see in masterminds and other places that I did 400 deals, 150 deals, 300 deals, 20 deals, 30 deals, whatever. If your goal is to do deals, you will make every micro decision different than if it is to have a high net revenue. You know, if it's just doing deals, it doesn't matter the size of the deal. It's how many deals can I do along the way. You can create something very big, very messy, very heavy. Same thing with gross revenue. Your goal is, unless you're a venture capital funded company who is just looking to do a whole bunch of growth revenue to show growth to continue to lose a whole bunch of money like Open Door. If you're a normal business like us, we're in this to make money. We're not in this to grow something big. We're not in this to say anything else. It's all vanity metrics. Tom Kroll is pushing this all the time. Number of deals is vanity. Net revenue is what actually changes your life and your family's life. And when
Absolutely.
you set your goals around net revenue, it makes every little decision that you make different and better.
And is there any way that you specifically, track that to keep yourself on the ball in terms
Uh-huh.
of
Oh yeah, I
just
look at it every single month with my bookkeeper. I look and see, hey, how much did my net worth increase because of all of my efforts this month, and how much net revenue did I make this month because of all my efforts? You have to know that number, those numbers every single month.
and in terms of for people that are kind of looking, because a lot of this falls into it's not just philosophy or theory, but it's about putting together the infrastructure of your business and having the right infrastructure and checkpoints in your business so that you are looking at the books and seeing how much of my budget is going to marketing, how much of my budget is going to my staff, how much net revenue am I bringing in, how much time of my own time am I sourcing to this business versus my ideal. I do you I I assume that you're probably going to say networking, but what is your
Yeah.
advice for helping people build that infrastructure?
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking to run the highest net revenue business, I mean, when you get networking deals, what was your cost per deal? Just your time that you spent on it. The networking deals absolutely play a huge contributor to the highest ROI. Like if your goal is just net revenue, now you're gonna what you gain in high net revenue, you're gonna lose in scalability, um, and ability to outsource to others and everyone else. So I do all of it, but yes, of all of it, it's the networking that leads to the high net profits for sure.
And in terms of real estate investor networking, are there any kind of like entry point groups that you suggest people to get into? And then as they scale up the networks or the mastermind groups that they should be looking at once they get a little further down the road?
Yeah. So I really like Wholesaling Inc. as kind of a initial small group run by Brent Daniels. I love Jerry Norton, and everything that he does for bringing people up. From there, my favorite masterminds are Collective Genius and Investor Fuel. And I mean, through those, Stuart Danier, who owns New Western Acquisitions, who does 20,000 deals a year, uh, is in Collective Genius. Like you can you can go a long, long ways with those groups.
Yeah, no, I
And
agree.
I don't
We
know
work
exactly
with
how many deals he does a year. Don't quote me on that, but it's a fantastically high number.
Yeah, and no, I agree with that 100%. Like, working with the coach level, someone like Brand was in the beginning is great because you're going to get all of the how to be a really successful wholesaler, or how to be a really successful, someone in this business from the ground up. And then when you get into like the CG level, you're really talking about how to build a business, and you're connecting with people that are running large scale operations, and you're really figuring out how to scale up, not in the sense of deal count, like you said, but in the sense of how do I actually scale this business so that I don't become time consumed with the business. I'm able to do it in an efficient way. So yeah, like the ABCs all the way up to the growth structure of a business entity, those groups can help you do that.
For sure. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. It's always very, very educational to be able to chat with you. So we'll have to do it again soon. For anybody for everybody on the call, we'll send a follow-up recording. If you've got any questions that come up later, you want us to pass along to Jason, let us know, and we'll do that.
Awesome. Thanks
All
all.
right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.